Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Stone, the Marketing and Communications Manager at Downtown Cleveland Alliance, and I'd like to thank you for joining DCA for the 29th episode of Downtown Now, celebrating Black History Month. After the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A session. Throughout the webinar, you're welcome to submit your questions using the Q&A button on the menu bar. This way, we will have questions queued up and ready to go to start the Q&A session. Also, feel free to utilize the chat box and we will do our best to address your comments throughout the broadcast. I will now turn it over to our Executive Vice President for Business Development, Michael Diemer.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks to all of you for joining us today for this episode of the Downtown Now webinar. This is a very special episode as we're commemorating Black History Month, and Cleveland has historically played an instrumental role in Black political and social progress. During the Great Migration, of course, thousands of Black Americans traveled to Cleveland from southern states and cities for better opportunities. In 1967, Cleveland elected Carl B. Stokes, the first Black mayor of a major American city. And the city hosted the historic Ali Summit, an iconic gathering of Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to talk about Ali's opposition to the Vietnam War. But to me, the really impactful thing about talking about Black History Month and recognizing Black History Month is to connect that history to what's going on in the present. And we'll talk about that today, paying homage to some of our athletes who have successfully advocated for social justice, drawing on personal experiences and bringing historical context and personal experience to the issues that we're facing today. And then we'll also connect that history in the present to the future and talk a little bit about where we're headed. To talk about all of that and more, we really have a terrific panel, a very special panel that I'd like to introduce now. We're joined today by Jim Chones, formerly of the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he played center from 1974 to 1979. He starred before that at Marquette University, played 2 seasons in the ABA and 8 seasons overall in the NBA. He won a NBA championship with the Lakers in 1980. He spent 11 seasons with the Cavs as a television analyst. In 2007, he returned as a radio analyst. And Jim, we've not talked about this, but very importantly, back in the early 80s at AAU summer camps, you apparently coached Downtown Cleveland Alliance's Vice President of Marketing and Public Relations, Heather Holmes. So we'll have to connect you with reunite you with Heather at some point to talk about that illustrious moment in your career. We're also joined by Campy Russell, another former Cleveland Cavaliers star, small forward from 1974 to 1980 and 85. He's the director of alumni relations for the Cavaliers and currently serves as a pre and post game analyst. He starred in college at the University of Michigan, played 10 years at the NBA and 7 with the Cavs, as I noted, and continues to work in the front office for the Cavaliers. And he connects former Cavaliers players with the organization and community through special appearances, events, and charitable efforts. And then finally, we're joined by Marquise Grissom, representing the Cleveland Indians as an alumni ambassador. Marquise played with the Montreal Expos, Atlanta Braves, Milwaukee Brewers, Los Angeles Dodgers, and San Francisco Giants between 1989 and 2005. He's a 2-time All-Star. And then he won a World Series with the 1995 Atlanta Braves and very memorably brought the Cleveland Indians to the brink of a World Series championship in 1997, winning the American League Championship Series MVP award. He founded the Marquise Grissom Baseball Association, a nonprofit that helps underprivileged youth in the Atlanta area play baseball, and most recently delivered a eulogy at the legendary Hank Aaron's memorial service. And I know we'll have a chance to talk a lot more about that. But Jim, Campy, Marquise, thanks for making the time today to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin by turning to you, Jim, and we'll start with you, but ask each of you to tell us a little bit about your personal background and some of the community activism you've gotten involved in and how that connects to your personal experience. We all know you as Cleveland sports legends and your contributions to the Cleveland sports scenes. But today we really want to talk about some of the things that you're doing and have done in the community, and how that connects and resonates with your personal backgrounds and experiences. And Jim, again, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, we thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm from a small town in Racine, Wisconsin, about 25 miles south of Milwaukee. My parents and grandparents came north through the Great Migration, and they left the fields and came north to work in the foundries. That was in the early 50s. Um, I'm the oldest of 6 brothers and sisters. Uh, Ended up going to Marquette. And from there, I had an opportunity to play in the old ABA and then the NBA. And then I had a chance to come to Cleveland. And the thing that I found about Cleveland, it was very similar to what I had left in Wisconsin. Everyday people, communities, neighborhoods, uh, 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 and summer festivals, big in summer festivals. A lot of Germans and Slavics, and they always had festivals back then. So when I came to Cleveland, the thing that I saw was that there wasn't a lot of athletes, former athletes, doing anything extensive as far as community development or community engagement. And so my motivation was Bingo Smith. Bingo Smith used to run basketball camps all over the city of Cleveland. They would take a big van and they'd put the hoop over the top and then lay it down, and he would stop at various parking lots or on playgrounds and work with the kids. And so we tried to take it a step further. I was able to get Kenny King, which was Kentucky Fried Chicken, to be our sponsor for a couple of years. And because of politics, we had to go to every ward in the city. So we did clinics in the morning, we did clinics in the evening, and we had special people. We had some people from this place called AAA Agency, which had to do with addiction. And that was the first year that HIV and AIDS became prominent. And so we had a couple specialists come out there and talk to the kids and about drugs and a lot about HIV. And then we had people like what's his name, the baseball player. Andre Thornton would come. We had Campy Russell. We had a whole bunch of guys come, try to talk to the kids, because trying to get them to understand the importance of healthy living, but also of education and trying to build a future. And that's how we got started. Then I worked with the Cleveland Public Libraries. We had a program for about 9 years where we did education and drama for inner city kids over at CMHA and a few other places. We ran that for about 12 years. And then we did a Youth Built, which was a federally funded program, which had to do with mentorship, leadership, and apprenticeship with the Maroos brothers. And so I was fortunate enough to be a big part of that. But all of this has to do with community engagement. And you hear guys talk about giving something back. And it's not just through your career, and I'm sure the other athletes will also co-sign it. It has more to do with being part of your lifestyle and your life commitment.
Well, I think Campy, you'd agree with much of what Jim said, that there's so many issues for athletes to engage in, and that personal experience brings so much meaning to it, and there's such an opportunity for athletes to have impacts on their communities. Can you share a little bit about your background that the audience may not be familiar with? And again, just as Jim did, talk a little bit about how your background and personal experiences have led you to some of the engagement and activism that you've been involved in as a player and following your playing career.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all for allowing us to be a part of this. And one thing I want to correct right off the bat, you have up there Campy Russell. My real name is Michael Campanella Russell. And the reason why I always tell people what my name is because sometimes, you know, you get so hung up on calling person one name, and then when his real name show up, they'll say, "Who are you talking about?"
Good point.
At any rate, I just want to just share that with you. But I grew up in, was born and raised in Jackson, Tennessee. But like Jimmy's family, all my family moved to Pontiac, Michigan because of the General Motors and what have you. And we all moved up there. My dad brought us up there in, let's say, probably like 1954. And at that time, I was 2 or 3 years old at that time, and that's basically where I grew up at. And in Pontiac, it was a unique place to grow up. And reason being is because, like most cities at that particular time, they were very segregated. And because of that, I think that was a great learning and coming together opportunity for me, because in our neighborhood, you know, most of the prominent people that lived in the city of Pontiac, particularly Black, we was all pretty much in the same neighborhood, which was the south side of Pontiac. And in the south side of Pontiac at that time, it was mostly all of the school teachers. It was mainly the doctors, the lawyers, the factory workers, some of everybody. And because of that, you know, that was a great experience for me because it was about community. It was about engaging with each other. It was about the pride of a community. And because of that, I think that is the thing that has really impacted me and put me in a position to always be conscious about where I am and how do I go by being a part of where I am. And that was one of the things that my dad always talked to us about is wherever you go, you have to be impactful in that area, no matter where it is. And to me, that is one of the reasons why when I first came to Cleveland, Jonathan asked me this earlier. He said, "Man, what you thought about Cleveland when you first got here?" And I was saying, "Man, wow, that was probably the worst thing ever happened to me is coming to Cleveland." But as I also was saying to him, that was the best thing that ever happened to me coming to Cleveland because it turned out to be a place very similar to Detroit, Pontiac, where it was in some regards very segregated as well. But at the same time, I understood that coming here, I have to be not only I have to be engaged into the community and be a part of the community. And I know that has always been my thought and my actions being here in Cleveland, and so much so that I always have wanted to live here in the city of Cleveland. Even to this day, I want to be in the city of Cleveland, not necessarily out in Shaker or in not taking anything away from them, but I know how being in an area where people can see you, touch you, talk to you, get some food for thoughts from you.
Yeah.
It helps. And there's no question in the community that I grew up in, because I was around and within the community with the teachers, the lawyers, the doctors, everybody, we all had this sense of great community.
Mm-hmm.
How we can impact community, even if we're not in Pontiac, but even other places. So I'm saying all that to say that that area that I grew up in was definitely an area that helped me and all my brothers and sisters. And I come from a family, there were 7 boys and 3 girls. And I come from a dad who was born in 1903, who understood all of those nuances that we are dealing with even to this day. And his thought always was about helping other people and being a part of your community. And so for me, that's why it's been easy for me to be a part of this community and to be able to reach out. And the job that I have with the Cavaliers is not a job. It's more of a mission, because it just helped me extend my mission that my father and my mother them had passed on to all of us. And very similar to Jimmy, you know, there were 7 boys and 3 girls.
Mm-hmm.
Father, as I said, was born in 1903. But one thing he understood is that he was not educated. Matter of fact, he didn't even learn how to write his name until he was like 67, 70 years old. And that was the first time that I ever saw him write Jake Russell on anything. But his whole thrust was, I want my kids to be better than me. And to that end, as a sharecropper, my sister, who is 92 years old today,
Wow.
she was the first person in our family to graduate from college. Matter of fact, she graduated in 1952, the year that I was born. So I'm saying all that to say that it's all about community. It's all about engagement. It's all about being able to be touched by the people that are in that community. And that is my thrust. That is who I am. And that is why I am what I am as it relates to the city of Cleveland, as well as to the Cavaliers. It's about being engaged.
Well, it can't be with the impact and engagement that you've had in Cleveland. I think you've learned your father's lessons well, and he'd be very proud of the impact that you've had here in all you're doing for our community. Marquise, I'd like to turn to you now and ask you the same question and share a little bit about your background and personal experience, and some of the ways that connects to the things and issues you've gotten involved in the community as a player and following your playing days.
Well, Michael, thank you for having me on. And it's a pleasure to be here to meet Campy and Jim. Thrilled to death, man. Pleasure to meet you guys and hear your stories and what you're doing in the community and what you've been doing with your career. Outstanding. And way to pave the way for other guys like myself. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, one of 15 kids. My mom and dad did an outstanding job of raising each and every last one of us. 8 boys, 7 girls. I was the first one of 15 to go to college in my family. Jim and Campy shared a lot of the same memories and experiences that I have. We talked where 1991 was the first time we ever had running water in our house and air conditioning. So when I left in 1986 to go to college, I was drawing water out of a well. Lived on a dirt road. And we had a 2-acre lot, house on the lot, and an acre garden where we grew all of our food. We killed a cow and killed a pig every year. That was our food for the winter. And what I couldn't understand about my dad was that we would raise all this crop and food on this 1-acre lot, and we would give it away. We would pack up enough for ourselves and can all the stuff and jar all the food, and then we give the rest of it away to the community. And I just could never understand that. All that work and sweat and tears I put in there in the summers, missed playing basketball and baseball with the kids. We worked till sun up to sundown, and we had the last 15, 20 minutes to go outside.
No.
That I'm a part of. We shared everything. We loved on one another, and everybody knew everybody.
We may need
Stories that they used to tell about how they used to pick cotton for 50 cents a day and had to walk 10 miles to pick cotton for 50 cents a day. And I'm hearing these stories as a young man, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And what Hank Aaron endured when he was coming up as a player, and how Jackie Robinson integrated baseball. So as a young man, I heard those stories and had those experiences. And so along the way, growing up as a kid, those things kind of came into place. They fell in order. And I understood that I had to go to college to get my education so I could come back and support the community, because I seen that what was lacking. To hear speeches from Martin Luther King, Ambassador Young, Hank Aaron, Joseph E. Lowry, right here in Atlanta, we got a lot of civil rights leaders. We have a lot of history here. And I tell all the African-American kids here in Atlanta, you got to know your history. And I almost feel obligated once I made it to the major leagues to come back and pay it forward and give it back, because it was given to me. There's no way, I think Campy and Jim can attest that there's no way we made it and done all this stuff by ourselves. It took a lot of help, a lot of support, coaches, teachers, friends, my great parents who raised 15 kids with a 2nd and a 6th grade education, who are my heroes. I put them right up there on the pedestal with Hank Aaron and Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays, because they're my heroes. And just like Campy said, that's why I am who I am today. And I do what I do because of my parents and all the people that laid down the foundation, put the work in to make it better, you know, for us to have different situations and create opportunities for us today. And shortly after my career, that's why I started the MGBA, Marquise Grissom Baseball Association, to give those kids an opportunity to get that education, graduate from high school, go on to college, and just become a professional in anything. It doesn't have to be baseball. It can be anything. But to be a positive role model and also donate something to society.
Well, these are all your personal stories are, I think, a great foundation for, you know, having this conversation during Black History Month about Black history, because to me, this is the power of talking about history, because it informs what we're doing in the present and the impact that we can all have in our community. And as we're going to talk about, we're dealing with so many of the same issues that you and those whose shoulders you stand on had to address. Campy, I'd like to circle back with you, and, you know, maybe ask you to comment a little bit on what you see among activism among Black athletes and the way that it's evolved over the course of your playing career and your time with the Cavaliers in the front office and as an analyst. You know, how have you seen the way that Black athletes are able to use their platform in the community change and evolve, if there has been an evolution? And do you see a difference in how the community responds?
Well, I believe one thing for sure, that the platforms that they have today is much greater, much more impactful than what we had coming up in the 70s. I came here, I got into the NBA in 1970. Prior to that, you know, I was in high school, and it was in the 60s, you know, and what have you. But for me, I just look at it this way, that their impact today is so great because of these new platforms that we have out here, the YouTubes, your own Facebook pages, and your own access to the world, and how the world is coming to them because of their own platforms, whether it's in sports, whether it's in medicine, whatever they're doing. So that's why, for me, I think it's the folks of this generation have better access to the world, you know. But back in the days that we were playing, at least when I was playing, we did not have that access because of just time, for the most part, in terms of what the social media and the impact that it is having throughout the world. And because of that, you know, guys like any guys in our league have access to people, and people are listening to what they have to say, and they're in tune to what's going on. So these guys now are so impactful because of their outreach, and outreach is everything. You know, if no one can hear your voice and hear what you think and cannot engage with you, they have no idea about who you are or what what you're about. So for me, I think that is the beauty of this social media piece, and the fact that these guys and the women now have opportunities to be heard and to be impactful. And I think that's a powerful tool to have. And on all sides, on all bases, they have covered all bases in terms of being activists, being not just with their voice, but even with their dollars and with their being on the scene in a lot of cases when there are some unrest type situations going on. So without a doubt, they have been impactful to the world and to everybody because of this social media apparatus that they have going on with this with themselves.
Jim, I want to circle back with you because when we talked a little bit earlier in the week, getting ready for this session, one of the things we talked about was how, so many of the issues that we're addressing and working on today are the same issues that you were working on and dealing with early in your playing career, and that our city and country have been dealing with for a long time. As you look back over that history and look at where we are today, how do you feel about the impact that athletes are having today? And it's similar to as Campy. Do you see the community responding any differently to these issues and the athletes that are raising them than maybe a couple decades ago?
Well, I think so, because in sociological terms, there's a thing we call the bribe. And the bribe is, okay, you're living in an all-white neighborhood, you got 2 Mercedes, you got money in the bank, you may even have a business, so keep quiet. And it was an unspoken rule that you kept your mouth shut. But what people fail to realize is that we have mothers and fathers, and we have brothers and sisters. We have cousins, grandparents who are not as fortunate as us from the standpoint of economics. And so we still engage with them. We still know their pain. And so that doesn't work anymore. There were a lot of athletes, a lot of entertainers that tried to act like everything was all right because they had it all right. And it's never been that way, but that was something that they perceived and something that kept them from getting involved. I mean, how could you be my age and not know of the sacrifices of Ali, of Jackie Robinson, of Hank Aaron, who I saw play in Milwaukee with Warren Spahn them, and here's this dark-skinned little guy getting up there, and he was hitting that ball so hard out of the place. My uncle and grandparents were looking, and they lived by that. They lived by Joe Louis. That was their inspiration. Joe Louis, Hank Aaron, the humility of those men. And then there's been other people in the arts and the sciences, who've done great things. But what's happened, and I was listening to an interview about 2 months ago, and it was Eddie Glad Jr. was talking to Mr. Morial, who used to be the mayor of New Orleans. And Eddie is rambunctious, aggressive, as he should be, fearless. And here's Morial with the experience, because he's been through it. And one of the things that he mentioned that has been a fundamental that has been slowing us down to some extent, but right will always overcome, was that we'll make 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And you have to understand that. And you can't exhale when a person like Obama becomes president, and then we all exhale, thinks everything is going to change. But we don't know that, but what we didn't know was the systematic approach to racism, the systematic approach to this government that keeps things the same, and so we sort of let Obama down because we expected that he would get it done. And this government has checks and balances, even though it didn't seem that way by the last president. It has checks and balances from the executive to the judicial and to the legislative. And all of these basic fundamentals are things that make it more important than ever to understand your history and have an education. In the 60s, where I came from, we were talking about, man, I don't want that white man's education. You know, ain't gonna learn nothing. No, but see, you gotta understand the fundamentals of education: curiosity, research, study. You just don't take it for what someone says. You go out and you try to do your research, and you figure it out for yourself. Because this world is an intellectual world, it's a spiritual world, it's a scientific world. And so these are some of the fundamentals that I was grappling with, that I'm sure our other guests were grappling with, and that we all grapple with, white and black. Racism affects white people too. It's called guilt. It affects us because we call it fear. You know, we need you to overcome our fears, and you need us to overcome your guilt. Those are the fundamentals of racism. But when the bribe is in and you're an athlete, everybody says, well, you know, he's got his, and he don't care about us. We don't see him but once a year. And I know you guys aren't like that, because I just heard your commentary, and I know Campy like a brother. So I understand that. But we're human. You know, we're fighting for humanity, because one is not going to survive without the other. That is the fundamentals of being human. This world, we're just manifestations of something greater. And the world, nature, has a way of creating its own balance. Climate warming, what is that about? It's about the earth trying to correct the mistakes of humans, trying to find balance within its own existence. That's a fundamental of science. You know, treating people right. Why? So that you can be treated right. That is a fundamental of science. Respecting other people. Why? So that you can be respected. Tolerating other people so that they'll tolerate you. These are just basic things that aren't difficult to understand, but the application is, because of the bribe, the money, right? The big house. In my time, dark-skinned brother marrying a light-skinned girl. You know, all these basic fundamentals, you know, that have nothing to do directly to our humanity. That's what Martin Luther King was talking about. You know, that's what Gandhi was talking about. That's what all these great men, that's what Hank Aaron. Hank never changed. Hank was Hank. He was a country boy. I've been to Birmingham in an AAU tournament, and I went to the field where he played. The kids in the basketball tournament said, Mr. Jones, can we go? I said, yes, we went. He said, why are we here? I said, one of the greatest men of our time. Oh, Muhammad Ali? No. Yeah. Hank Aaron. He faced it all, just like Jackie. Jackie was his inspiration. Hank Aaron was all of our inspiration. I could go on forever, but I'm going to stop.
You must have sensed right where I want to take this, because we've all talked about Hank Aaron over the course of the last half hour. And Marquise, I really want to go back to you, and you knew the man. You just you know, had the opportunity to eulogize him. He you know, has meant so much, not just to the game of baseball, not just to sports, but, you know, talk about an American hero, and just, you know, wonder if you could talk a little bit about Hank Aaron's impact on you, his impact on sports in the country and the Black community. And, you know, he has not been gone that long, but, you know, what his legacy means to us right now.
Well, Michael, the history goes back to college. I got offered a full scholarship to Florida A&M University, where Robert Lucas was the head baseball coach, and his brother Bill Lucas was the first Black general manager for the Atlanta Braves, probably in the history of baseball. And I had the opportunity to also play for his son, Larry Aaron, who was a pretty good baseball player himself, who was the outfield coach. So during that time at Florida A&M, we're on our way to North Carolina A&T to play North Carolina A&T. About halfway point is Atlanta, 8-hour drive, 4 hours to Atlanta, 4 hours to North Carolina. And Larry Aaron told us we were going to stop by Hank Aaron's house. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, right, we're gonna stop by Hank house. Okay, yeah. And lo and behold, we did stop by Hank Aaron house. And we all sat around the table, got a tour of the house, sat around the table. And Hank gave us this famous speech about opportunity and getting an education. And so once we left that house on that ride to North Carolina A&T, I don't think we got 10 miles outside of Georgia. I was asleep. I'm talking about I went straight to sleep and I dreamed all the way to North Carolina A&T, all the way to North Carolina A&T. And when we got there, I woke up, and at that point, it was a fire lit inside of me that one scene when he said, "If I can do it, you can do it." It resonated. It stuck with me and lit a fire. And from that point on in my baseball career, on my journey to the major leagues, I felt like nothing could stop me. Nothing could stop me. And at that point, I go back and realize that Hank Aaron and I grew up 14 miles away from where he lived.
Wow.
5 exits up the street off the freeway. Couldn't believe it. Went back home, told all my friends, trying to get on my bike to ride back to see Hank Aaron, go by his house and visit his house. Just couldn't do it. But anyway, as I continue my baseball career, I would run into Hank when we played the Braves, come into town, and he would tell me about all the good stuff that he was doing. And it rubbed off. And I just wanted to be like him. I wanted to be a guy that was in the community. I wanted to be a guy that hung around the stadium and gave off information and experiences about his career. And I just wanted to be like Hank. And who would ever thought that I'd get an opportunity to hang around Hank Aaron, Ambassador Young, and hear the stories about those three guys and Martin Luther King. And that's who I thought Hank was. Hank was a combination of Jackie Robinson, Dr. Martin Luther King, Joseph E. Lowry, John Lewis. He was a combination of all of those guys. And just like Campy said, he never fret. He never moved. He never changed. He was that same guy all the time. And so it was a no-brainer once I finished playing to get back in contact with Hank the last 5 years of his life, and the last 5 years, getting an opportunity to get him engaged in what I was doing, to get that certificate. Hey, am I doing this right in the community? Am I headed in the right direction? How do I maneuver myself to get the Braves involved, to change the world, to make a change like you did? And he laid down that foundation. He gave me that paperwork. And that's why I started the Marquise Grissom Baseball Association, because of Hank Aaron. And people just don't know it. I'm pretty sure he had his impact on a whole bunch of people, but that was my second dad who really changed my life the last 5 years about the game of baseball.
Well, I mean, that's an incredible legacy and a incredible connection you were able to forge. I mean, I know I read his autobiography. I had a hammer when I was a teenager, and it hit me like a hammer. I love the game of baseball, but that his accounting of his life, the hate that he endured in the year I was born, chasing the home run record, it hit me hard then and has stayed with me ever since. So I can only imagine the impact for you, Marquise, of having interacted with him personally and have had that kind of personal influence on your work. And it sounds like the association you founded is a incredible legacy for both you and him. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to pause here, and Jonathan, you've been patiently monitoring the audience questions and see what sorts of questions we have coming in, and if you would share a few of them with our guests.
Sure. And first, we've gotten a few comments, just, thanking you all for being here today and sharing your thoughts and opinions. So, I just wanted to make a note of those comments before we get into the questions. For the first question, someone asked, Some will say, or will often say, that professional sports aren't the place to discuss social and racial issues. As a professional athlete and someone who may have faced discrimination, how would you respond to that? And that's for anyone. So feel free to jump in.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll jump in it because it'll be short. For
Yeah.
me, for me, with everything that's going on in the world today, and Michael, we talked about this the other day. I'm not into politics, but what I am into is, I think myself, is if everybody do their part, if everybody would give, everybody would serve and love and try to protect one another. That's what I want to do. I have a platform. I'm going to use it, use baseball to get an education, get these guys to get an education and become a professional in whatever they choose to be. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think if everybody do that, would give and help and protect and love one another, the world would be a better place. And that's all I try to do. And I don't try to do too much more than that. And if stuff gravitates and add on, fine. If it don't, I just try to keep it moving. Because again, what I found out, I realized the last 10 years, I've been busting it, trying to do everything I can to help and save as much as I can. And at the end, I'm losing out. And I had to learn that the hard way and spend more time with my family, spend more time with my kids and my wife. And the pandemic really brought that home to me. And for a lot of people, they're upset and confused about being in the house and staying at home. It's been the best thing that ever could have happened to me and my family. We've came together, we joined together, and we bonded together. And I really see all the years I was out on the field performing and playing and traveling that I missed out on a lot. And it took the pandemic to open up my eyes to see that I need to spend more time with my family, more time with myself, more meditation, give you more time to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And so now I'm fishing a little bit more and I'm golfing a little bit more.
To that
Right.
point, when you talk about the original question, Jonathan, was about. Could you repeat the question again, please?
Some will often say that professional sports aren't the place to discuss social and racial issues.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I got it. Well, to me, I think that's, that is just some people, that is saying that. Now, who are some people? I look at it this way, I think, and Marquise touched upon it, it's all about humanity. And because we are all a part of humanity, we should all have a voice. We should all speak to the truth in the way that you may see it. We should all be more concerned about, other people, that no one should be marginalized. And I think Marquise talked about one thing just a second ago when he talked about his experiences with Hank Aaron. And I just believe this, that, when you have exposure or been exposed to something, and when you have an experience with something, those are the things that create opportunities. And in some cases, if you don't have those experiences and exposure, you miss out on opportunities. So for me, I think it is up to everybody to always try to expose people to different thoughts. It's always good to have experiences, because when you have experiences, you have a better understanding of the people or the experiences that you're having. So for me, I think that's a big part of life, is to have the exposure, have those experiences, and because of that, you have the opportunity to put yourself, and other people can have the opportunity to put themselves in better situations because of those experiences, that exposure. Because I think those are critical. And that's what I talk to young people about, is open yourself up to experiences and be exposed to things. Because I know for a fact, if I would not have had the experiences that I've had, and the exposure that I have had, that I may not be sitting here right now. So for me, I think it's crucial. Anytime you have the opportunity to speak to a wrong that you know is wrong, you have to speak to that.
Mm.
Don't, you might as well just, the only thing you're doing is aiding and abetting the things that are negative that's going on around you if you don't speak up for it. So I believe you have to speak up.
Well, one of the things that I write and I read a lot, and I remember William Faulkner, who's from Marshall County, Mississippi, where all my people are from Mississippi. He said, he was asked the question, Faulkner was asked the question, where do you get your ideas for your stories? He said, like any other human being, you know, it comes from observation, imagination, and experience. I mean, that's how we learn as human beings. And when you understand that, and you have this great platform where you can make a difference. Listen, how many of you have driven through the inner cities? We're in the midst of a Great Depression. We have my people, your people, our people, they have nothing. They have, I'm not talking about material. I'm talking when I see them walking down the street with their heads down in old dirty clothes, crime around the corner. That's a depression. I'm talking about a spiritual depression. That's what this is about. How do we uplift people so they feel better about themselves so they can improve themselves? That's what this whole thing is about. Because that feeling, Marquise, that you have in your gut when you drive through the city, Campy, when you speak and you drive through the city, or you have CAPS programs and you bring kids that don't have any idea what, you know, what Rocket Mortgage's a field house is about. And they look and they see that and the exposure and the observation, because the human mind is beyond our reality. We're spirit. The Bible says we're made in God's likeness. Therefore, we're spirit. And spirit has no end. It's infinite. Material things, flesh and soul, they're all finite. They come to an end. But what lives forever is our spirit. What made you play, Marquise, when times are bad and it's a 3-2 count? And you hit a home run, or you say that they can't be. When you make that crazy step back bank shot to win the 1 games, you know, where you had to go beyond your own reality. That spirit, that feeling you get in your gut. Jonathan, when you look at your beautiful kids and no words need be said. You see, that is spirit. That's what we're trying to get everybody in this country to understand about why athletes do what they do. Why do they watch sports? They can watch the physical contribution, but it's something deeper than that.
Yeah.
Sports and athletes have the ability to uplift people, and that uplifting is another word for spirit.
Mm.
That's what we all trying to achieve and get, you know, because our inner cities are messed up.
Mhm.
We have too many of our people have nothing. 20-some percent, almost 20-some percent of white Americans have taken the virus inoculation, but only 3% of blacks in this country. Something's wrong with that. Something is wrong with that. You know, that's why we're here today. You know, I don't know if I'm keeping on cue, but I do know that we're in a Great Depression. Too many of our people have been brutalized, marginalized, excluded. Get that feeling that when you walk around people of other colors, that you just feel it, that they don't think you're as good as them. They call it the value gap. When they say racial things, and they don't mean it, they were sincere in their commentary, but they've lived under this type of racism so long that they think it's acceptable. That's why they riot at Capitol Hill. That's why they believe lies are the truth. That's what I'm talking about.
And we've we've noted the impact that individual, athletes have, but this next question kind of relates to, a more general theme of, how your respective leagues have changed over time to be more supportive of inclusive initiatives. So in what ways have you seen, the NBA or the MLB change to be more supportive of, Black athletes and other, inclusive initiatives?
Well, I think for baseball, I think MLB is, um, I want to say they're doing a pretty good job of trying to engage into the community. I just think each team can do more. The whole MLB network can do more of getting engaged in the community. You just think about the academies that are built overseas in the Dominican and Puerto Rico and Mexico, and how about right here in the United States?
Mhm.
We'd like to see that happen, and but I think um, they're doing the bare minimum of giving our kids here in the community a chance. You got to think about us as baseball players. Our kids in the community are steady learning the fundamentals of the game. The game has evolved to sabermetrics and analytics, and more expensive, and again, more and more expensive, where we have no chance of getting that $300 bat or that $300 glove, or getting a chance to play in a $2,000 or $3,000 tournament, to get a chance to get that showcase, get an opportunity to get seen. Now, with the testing in mind, I think where if you don't test well, you don't score well, we don't even have to see you on the field. So there's a lot that I think MLB can do, and it's a lot that they're doing, and I'm a part of a lot of that stuff. But I just think there's more could be done uh, if we continue to stick together. Something similar to the Baseball Alliance, they got a good thing going. I hope they continue to do that. And us guys out here, the boots that's on the ground roots, guys that are doing the work, can come together and put together a better format to cultivate the community.
One thing I'd like to add to that is the resistance is organized. So we have to be organized. Our dialogue cannot be here today and gone tomorrow. There has to be a systematic approach where the dialogue and the narrative of change is reiterated through the different channels, through sports, domestic, and other institutions. And I would say to you, to anyone who's listening, that let me tell you a short story. Jesse Jackson told a story that in the early 1950s or the late 40s, a group of prominent Black men went to Roosevelt, and they were telling about the lynchings and the hangings and everything. And Roosevelt looked at them smoking that long cigar, that long cigarette, sign of arrogance, I guess. But anyway, he said, do something to make me change. Do something to make me help you. In other words, what Roosevelt was saying, the change that you want, I know is right, but I have to be able to justify, and those that are perpetrating are organized. And so we became more organized. The NAACP does a great job with the very little funds. We ought to be ashamed that they struggle economically because we won't give money enough so they could do the job that we want them to do for us. The Urban League, all of these fundamentals. So you have to understand that there has to be a systematic approach. The NBA, they're doing a lot. We're 50-50 partners. That has never happened in any major sport in America. We split revenues, 50-50. Can you imagine that in baseball? Could you imagine that in football? We're going to split revenues 50-50. We have the greatest player of this modern era called the President of the United States, the one that just left, stupid. When does, when, I mean, that doesn't happen. That is a young man that understands his power and his influence and who understands what it takes for change. He took $50 million of his own money to send 1,100 kids from the Akron area, LeBron James, to be educated. Now he's building housing. Yes, building housing so they can have a place to stay. And we're talking about athletes. What did Tatis, is that his name, Grissom? What did he get? $350 million about 10 days ago?
That's correct.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And teams, you know, and then they're fighting about Dak Prescott not getting 40 million when everybody else around them got 35. I mean, just look in Forbes magazine where they talk about where they talk about the value of these teams. Those are write-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Those any money that they give to a player, Marquise, Campy, you guys are in business. Those are write-offs.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't giving him no real money. It's just paper write-offs against other losses. You know what I'm saying? So there are so many things that we need to understand about this system and how it works. But the greatest thing I got from Jesse Jackson, and I love him, was that we need to be organized. Because if we're not Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
Abrams, them sisters.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine once told me, he said, none of this racism and killing between how blacks kill blacks and all this murders and stuff, cops shooting people in the back because they're running away, and he said he was a threat. None of this will end until the mothers have had enough. I mean, I was told this 6 years ago, and it's coming true. What happened in Atlanta with those sisters, the power of the vote, understanding the power of the vote and what they did to change this country is powerful. Think about that.
Talking about the WNBA, how
Yeah.
they came together, and
Campy, do you want to just, or Marquise, since you're in Atlanta, either of you want to elaborate on, the involvement of the WNBA players in Atlanta, because everybody listening may not be familiar with what they did.
That's for me.
Yeah, either Campy, you were starting to talk about it, if you wanted to elaborate, but Marquise, I know
I was only talking about it from the degree of the impact that they had.
Yeah.
The voting and how they got everybody engaged down there, because it speaks to what Jimmy was talking about. Is about a commitment and engagement and coming together to make changes happen. And to me, that is the only way that it can happen, is by bringing and galvanizing a lot of voices, a lot of bodies, a lot of people that have the same thought and want the same thing. And when those dynamics come together, there will be change. But as long as those dynamics are scattered and they only come together in some instances, that is the thing that allow this systemic, institutional racism to continue to be what it is. So it really is required a focus of everyone to make this thing become something that we know it should be, and to put everybody in a better situation that they currently are in. Because as Jimmy just talked about the pandemic and talking about the
Clarity, yeah.
the people not having the shot, having access to the shots, particularly our community.
Yeah.
That is, again, goes back to some intent almost, intent. Everybody talks about, let's get it out there, but why isn't it out there in our community?
Mm-hmm.
And Campy, one of the reasons why it's not in our community is because of the way people think. Our people, meaning dark people, and also the way our society thinks. they devalue our humanity. When people look at us, they don't see us as being the same thing unless we're a celebrity or an athlete, or if they know we have big what they consider big money. Otherwise we got brothers and sisters walking the streets who are way smarter than us and way more talented than us, but
No
they
doubt.
beat up so badly, Campy. That's the depression I'm talking about. Childbirth. Come on. This is 2021. We still have one of the highest percentages of childbirth deaths, like a third world country, in our Black community. You know what I mean? And then you've got all of these drive-bys, killing babies, killing girlfriends, because let me tell you the fundamentals of something. And this is something that we as athletes have always strived for. We wanted to be known because we saw that there was some privilege, that there was some value to being a celebrity or star or being good at something, not necessarily even sports, but being good at something. But racism is so powerful. It had us thinking that the only way, this is back when I was growing up in the 60s, the only way that you could be accepted was if white society accepted you. Therefore, it made it easier for you to accept yourself. I know, but that's the way we're talking about the mind. We're talking about the way pathological behavior and the result of racism. It made us think that if the white man accepts us for what we are, therefore it makes it easier for us to accept ourselves, because we hadn't yet accepted ourselves. Because what Marquise talking about is that we didn't know our history and our education. If we had known that, I wouldn't have been looking for approval from someone else to justify what I am. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
You see, that's what we go through as athletes. And once we get the mobility into society, we got guys with hundreds of millions of dollars, 3 and 4 homes, 5 and 6 cars, and they're helping people and doing all of these things. And they're not waiting on somebody or society to tell them who they are, what they are. They're going ahead because they know who they are and they can do more. That's why education is important, because it gets us to thinking about our experience of what we've observed, and the imagination, which is the spiritual part of intellect, takes over. That's why we need to be educated. That's why we need to be educated. That's why we need to do so many things that can help us. But the first thing we have to do is this, like I tell my kids, when they would come, Dad, I want to get you this. Dad, I'm gonna make it big. I'm gonna get this and that. I said, listen, first you got to help yourself. If you don't improve yourself, you can't help me and mom. And that's what this is about. I mean, that's why we're on this earth. They talk about it in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah, right? Improving self. All those are books of personal development. How can I improve myself so that I'm worthy to be living? And this is what we're all striving for. That's why we're here today.
Well, I think that's maybe a powerful and perfect note to conclude today's conversation on. And I hate to cut it short. We're over our hour. I want to be respectful of your time and our audience's time. I feel like we could continue this conversation for a long time, and I hope we have a chance to engage with all of you again. I really want to thank you for joining us today, for sharing your histories, for sharing, all the work that you're doing, the insights that you've accumulated over your years of activism, and we're just really grateful here in Cleveland for all that you're doing for the community and the impact that you're having. Thankful not just for your time today, but again for everything that you're doing. I want to thank the audience for joining us today in what has been an incredibly engaging and illuminating conversation. I hope that you've not only enjoyed it, but that you're inspired to go out and make change and have an impact on your community, on all the issues that we've talked about. And I hope you continue to find ways to commemorate Black History Month for the remaining days in February, and continue to work with us at Downtown Cleveland Alliance and having a positive impact in our community. But once again, I want to thank all of you for joining us. Thank you, Jonathan, for your work today and preparing today's session. And we'll see all of you in our audience in 2 weeks for the next episode of Downtown Now.
Michael, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. And I think it was a fine forum. Marquise, Jimmy, hey man, you guys gave us all a lot of insight.
Yeah.
Thank the audience as well.
Thank you all.
Right back at you guys. Jim, Campy, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Jonathan,
All right.
Michael.
Appreciate you
All
guys.
right.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.